Okay, we're ready to rock.
Ready to rock.
I hit the edit switch and it didn't work, so I don't know. I think it's working now. Okay.
So are we rolling?
Yes, we are rolling. We can start any time.
All right. So shall I do the little intro again?
Yeah. Why not? Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Mary Michele for WVIP, and I'm here with Richard Johnson. It's the week of January 1st, 1996, and we're going to give you some local information about local businesses, local events, local things that might seem of interest to you, and also whatever comes up to us that is of interest to us about national news, we'll bring it up, or events, or just any kinds of different things. So, Richard, what do you think? What should we start talking about here today?
Well, I think we ought to talk about what's in the sports page, which is interesting to me, which is about horse racing. Found a new star in Cigar. I saw him race recently at the at Belmont Park at the Breeders' Cup, and what a horse! He was unbelievable.
Where'd you get that name?
Alan Paulson is his owner, and I'm not really sure why. I think it's some sort of business interest he has. It's a 5-year-old horse, though, who is absolutely incredible if you could watch him race. I saw him race 4 or 5 times last year, and each time that he raced, he never was whipped, he never was pushed, and he was a lock. If you're a horse racer, it was a perfect bet. Didn't pay anything, unfortunately, and that's typical of the game.
We got to play to win here.
You got to play to win, and you're there to make money.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
I don't like to. Why go?
It's pretty.
It is pretty. It is pretty, but it's the action you're looking for. You're looking for. It gets your blood going. It really is exciting when you win. There's nothing quite like it. You feel like you've ridden the horse, and at least that's how I feel about it. But it's nice to see him to get the award because he was such an incredible animal. He started out on the grass, and they thought he was going to be a great turf horse. But then they put him. He didn't do very well, and at which point they put him on the dirt. Excuse me, and then he's just killed everybody. He beat everybody, and he deserved every.
Is this a local owner, the person that...
No, he's from California, Alan Paulson, and.
Well, why is the horse local then?
Well, because the Breeders' Cup was held this year at Belmont Park in New York, and every major racetrack gets a turn, and this was their year. So they raced him in New York as many times as they could because generally an owner, if he knows he's going to go for the Horse of the Year award, he will go for the track that's running at the Breeders' Cup. So if it was in Florida, they would have based him in Florida more, but this year it was New York, so it was very exciting. The sad note is that Mac Miller, who was a 74-year-old is a 74-year-old Hall of Fame trainer, he also retired, and he was one of my favorite trainers. So as years go by, you hate to see him go retire because he's such a good horseman. Man from Kentucky, he's really everything a horseman brings to the table. He knows quite a bit, and he was always a good man to bet on. So I'll miss him.
Well, this is what happens to us, the baby boomers. Because as of 1996, January 1st, 1996, the baby boomers started turning 50.
Yes, and very painful, I might add.
Very painful. Every 7 seconds, one of us will turn 50 from now until the year 2014. We're not turning 50 this year, but we're getting there.
I have a few years, fortunately.
Right.
We won't say how many Mary Michele has, but it's no fun, is it?
It's no fun.
But on the other hand, it's not so bad because you're a little more settled in your life, and your expectations may not be as much, but they seem reasonable. The goals seem reasonable, wouldn't you say?
Definitely, definitely. And one of the things that made me think of it is that I have a friend who owns racehorses, but is also a big follower of the ballet, the New York City Ballet. And I was reading in the New York Times yesterday about Cynthia Gregory, who was the prima ballerina for the New York City Ballet for quite a long time,
who is turning 50 this year, and she was talking about how important it is for us as baby boomers to inspire people now that we're coming into that middle-aged range. And the things that we can look forward to is this idea of learning to really inspire the people that are coming after us, the next generations. And in a way, we were kind of the generation that was always looking for others to inspire us.
Well, what's interesting about that is that I never listen to anybody, so I wouldn't be here, folks. But and my father always used to say, "You never listen to me." And now I'm my age. I'm looking at trying to look at the new generation, and they don't listen at all either. So it's kind of sad. You feel that. You'd like to pass that information on to them about, the more you listen, the more you learn, and the quicker you get the results you want. But no one listens.
No one listens. I know it's tough. And Richard has this wonderful son called Jack. Now, do you think he listens?
Not a word, folks. Not a word.
But they have this wonderful game that he got him. What's the game called?
PlayStation by Sony, and it's really quite something. It's this little computer you put in your television, and you feel like you're in the car that you're driving, or if it's football you like, you play, and you're on the team. It's really quite something. I'm glad I got it for him.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, it's
good.
very exciting.
I know it's the kind of thing that, gives me instant indigestion. My stomach just starts to do some results.
Right. But for people who are action-oriented, go for it. Get it. This is a perfect gift for your kid.
Yeah. Great. So, I wanted to talk about this. There is a shop in Larchmont. It's called the Plaza Bouderie. And for this week only, it's having a 10 to 60% off sale. So really, go down to the Plaza Bouderie at 1910 Palmer Avenue in Larchmont. And what else? Oh, the bats. We were going to talk about the bats.
Well, what can you say about bats, folks?
You can say a lot.
Well, what?
It's part of the ecological chain. Bats are the things that eat the insects.
Right.
Right.
And God bless them for that. But when you see them, who wants to be near them? I don't.
I think they're kind of cute.
Well,
flying mice, as somebody said.
Right, and I'm not a big fan of mice either. But
well, mice also serve. I don't know about, maybe rats serve better. But I wanted to mention this place in. Wait a second, we got to find it here. In this lecture that's going to happen at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday at the Westmoreland Sanctuary. It's being given by Kathleen Atkins, and the lecture is on bats in the environment and how important they are. If you want to call, it's 234-3017.
I wish I had something nice to say about bats, but I don't. I don't like them, and I don't want to be near them.
You don't?
No, not at all.
Have you been to Transylvania?
No, but soon, maybe.
Do you know the story about Count Dracula?
Yes.
What's the story?
The story is that he... the story is things went south on him, and he became... a nightman, I guess,
But you know what has happened? Because the venom well, it's not venom. It's not exactly a poison, but it is something that is used, I believe, for heart patients. Whatever it is that happens in the serum of the bat's bite, it coagulates blood. It either coagulates it, or what is it for heart people? They give them a blood thinner. It's a blood thinner. So, and garlic is as well. So that's one of the reasons why I think that this correlation happened between bats and Count Dracula. But Count Dracula was a pretty horrible character.
Wasn't a nice guy. From what I understand, historically, he actually would impale his own soldiers and villagers and put them on the perimeter of his property, at which point he felt that anybody who came upon that, they'd think, well, if this guy's going to do this to his own kind, imagine what he would do to us. So he was well protected for years, from what I understand.
Really, really. Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, not a nice guy.
Not a nice person. We don't want him for breakfast. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, should we talk a bit about the year 1995? What's gone by? Oh, I wanted to say I read about Old Lang Syne. Do you know what that means? Do you know what it means?
I really don't know.
Okay, old Lang Syne, right? Old, long since. So really what they're saying is in days gone by.
Days gone by.
So should we reminisce a bit?
I suppose we could. You want me to take off on this? Well,
What about Geraldo going into nighttime? What do you think of that?
I didn't realize he was, but
Well, isn't the CNBC show a nighttime show?
the one that he did with OJ on every night, right? And I think that's the show that he enjoyed the most.
Right.
It's probably a good idea. He's a good, great journalist an investigative reporter who's very good. So I imagine anything that he's going to go after, he'll certainly draw the ratings because he's an interesting guy.
Well, also I think he can be less sensationalistic at night.
Right.
Whereas daytime talk shows kind of lend themselves a little more to high drama, kind of like the soap operas or something.
Right. And I think we have enough of those on, don't you?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But they serve a purpose. I think they're important. Did you know that the popcorn king died, Orville Redenbacher?
I did read that, yes. I never did buy any of his popcorn.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
How about Paul Newman's?
His either. I figure, they've all made enough money.
But they are having a sale at ShopRite on Orville Redenbacher.
Well, there you go. So go for it, folks. If it's cheap, we all love it.
Oh, goodness.
But should we check this out?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm feeling much better because the editor is working properly, the way it's supposed to be working.
All right, good.
Now, I think I should get a little closer. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. We were going to set up a monitor so we could see, but we can't see.
All right.
But glasses are off. All right, now,
All
do you
right.
think you should do an intro, or?
Why don't you do the intro?
What am I introing?
This is the Westchester version of...
This is the VIP treatment for all you folks out there in television land. This is Mary Michele, and my name is Richard Johnson, and we're going to go over some of the baby boomers' problems coming up in the next year. And one of the things I'd like to talk about it would be Jerry Garcia. How do you feel about Jerry Garcia dying?
Well, I think it's really tragic. He was our generation, and it was a pretty tough thing. The Grateful Dead. You have a funny story about the Grateful Dead, don't you?
Well, I'm not.
With your father? Didn't your father not quite understand?
Well, yeah. I mean, you hear some of the names of the groups out now, and as my father pointed out, well, when he heard the Grateful Dead, he was a little bit concerned about my future, for obvious reasons. I was very saddened to hear that he died. I mean, I always wondered how he lived so long. I think these guys that are in these bands really do some serious abuse, and drug abuse and living abuse. And he was so talented. There's no one who plays guitar like Jerry Garcia. And I'm very sad that we won't have him around anymore.
I think one of the things that's hard about these heroes that we have in general is that we kind of want our heroes to be larger than life, which means that they then live in the extreme, and everything is about extremes, which is why, there's too much drugs, too much sex, too much rock and roll. Everything is one extreme or the other.
Right. My experience about Jerry Garcia, I was just thinking of a funny story. I went to Woodstock, and we got a little... had a friend who went up a couple of days in advance, and we had a spot right next to the hog farm, which was the Grateful Dead's sort of family, I guess. This is back in '69, And when I wasn't listening to the other bands, I just sat back and listened to Jerry Garcia all night long play. It was like a dream come true for me.
Your own private concert.
They were right next to us. They fed us everything, I might add, and really added quite to the party. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's amazing all the kind of pressure that we put on our heroes, and certainly Hugh Grant was a good example of that this year, looking at some of the problems that he had. Which brings us around to this article that I was reading in the Reader's Digest about this decision about circumcision. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I do. Being male, it's quite important, I guess. It's obviously... my son, we had to make this decision on my son, and I didn't know whether to get him done or not. And I am circumcised, so I just felt, well, I suppose if I am, he should be. That was the decision. I didn't do it for any other reason. I did talk to a Jewish friend of mine, though, who said, well, you're going to get a rabbi to do it. And I said, well, it's already been done. The hospital did it like the second day he was born, so the decision was very quick. And
but what was one of the things that stood out in that article about it for you, in the Reader's Digest article?
the fact that there is no reason pro or con. I think it's just a matter of tradition. And I don't think it matters if you're circumcised or not, from what the article says.
Well, it did sort of point out, though, that the reason why it's so important is for cleanliness purposes. And even though this country, we're known for being the ones that take the most showers and baths, and water is so important and so on, it's still, there is a lot of problem with people not keeping themselves completely clean, which, isn't addressed too often. But
No, which, when you say that, I'm rather shocked. Geez, come on, guys. Let's wash up. I mean, it's that simple, just get to it.
well,
I mean, how do women feel about it? Does it matter to you? I mean, I hate to be so specific.
Well, certainly it's not something that I'm going to notice particularly in terms of how it's going to affect me in the personal connection. But
right, and I feel that with most men, I think you have what you have, so you're not, it doesn't matter if you are or not. And I think that's what the article is saying, is that it's probably up to this is something your parents just pass on down to you.
Right, but I think it's the philosophy behind it, which is this idea of making sure that things are clean, because the reason it became so popular was in World War I or World War II, all these soldiers that went to war,
right?
They were in hot climates, and it was hard to bathe, so there were a lot of infections. I mean, this is basically where it comes about. So it comes about from this idea, and of course, there is this ongoing issue with medical issues in general, where, if you take care of yourself, then, the odds are that you're not going to get sick in any particular area. Now, you can't put too much responsibility on saying that it's your fault that you got sick, because it isn't totally a person's fault. But I do think that it is about being aware and being careful of all the different possibilities of how you could make yourself sick, and how, thinking about it.
Right, and cleanliness is next to godliness, let's face it.
Okay, well, I think we should move on from there.
We'll move on.
Oh, goodness, well, what do you think of our new, is it our lieutenant, our governor, the second in command, Betsy Ross? Don't you think that's fun, that that's her new name, Betsy Ross?
Yeah, I didn't realize
Betsy
that.
Macaulay, she married this guy, I think it's Wilbur Ross, so now she's Betsy Ross, and of course she kind of looks like Betsy Ross. She's so pretty with these big all-American smile and everything. And anyway, I think that's kind of a funny little anecdote that happened this year, that New York State has its own Betsy Ross.
How about the fact that Rose Kennedy died?
Oh, I know.
I mean, I'm from Massachusetts. I'm sure we never thought she'd ever pass away. What a matriarch. And that's kind of an end of an era, isn't it?
Definitely. They certainly have had their share of tragedies over the years, the Kennedys.
Which, getting back to a theme that you like, in the Celtic tradition, women have quite a bit of power, don't they? Which you've talked about before.
The longevity of women, yeah.
Well, it definitely was a part of all of the early traditions was always with the, I think because it was kind of a mystery. It was something that people didn't quite understand how babies came into being. So the fact that the woman had more power because they didn't really know that the man had anything to do with it.
Which times haven't changed, folks. We're getting less and less.
Oh, but one of the things I think we ought to mention is that inasmuch as we've had such a rough time in the holiday week, what is that one thing that you hate to do around the house?
Clean the house.
Yeah.
And that's why we have Jerry.
The maids.
Give him a call.
Yeah, do. Give Jerry a call. So I think maybe we ought to go to a break and watch a bit of a movie. What do you think?
Great. So we'll watch Wild Bill. We'll watch the preview of Wild Bill, and then we'll talk about that a little bit.
Okay. See you in a minute.
How'd we do?
I don't know. Let's go look.
You threw me with the Betsy Ross. I'm going, who the hell is that?
Are we rolling?
Yep, we're rolling. Which one are we doing first? I've forgotten.
I know. It's Wild Bill.
Wild Bill. Okay, we've just come back from... Now, you going to start?
You do it.
Thanks a lot. Okay. How would you do that?
All right, we've just come back
there you
from...
Sure.
He tricked me into it. We've just come back from a film clip of Wild Bill, and we thought we'd talk about it a little bit. Now, do you remember who all the different people are that are in it?
Ellen Barkin.
Oh, he remembers the girls first.
I remember her.
She's a sexy one, isn't she?
She doesn't look too sexy in the movie,
No.
but what does she play? She plays
Calamity Jane.
Calamity Jane. And one of the... I can't remember his name. Oh, God, we should start over. Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. John Hurt. It's a Walter Hill film. Diane Lane. Keith Carradine. Bruce Dern.
Walter Hill do... I'm dead on this, see, because I can't remember. I need to know. Let's start over. But we can't... Walter Hill did those movies with, what's his name? The good-looking guy, and Paul Newman. Didn't he?
The Sting?
Yeah, didn't he do that?
I think so.
So this is... okay, but we've lost it here. I've lost it.
Yeah, but Dick, you have to keep pushing.
Okay.
All right? We just have to keep pushing. But we'll start again with Wild Bill.
All right.
So we've just come back from Wild Bill, and it was a great film, great trailer. It's got John Hurt, Bruce Dern, the stars Jeff Bridges.
Ellen Barkin, who I like.
The woman.
Yeah,
What about Diane Lane? Do you like her?
She's good, too.
Do you remember her from the Cotton Club?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And
It looks like a movie I would like to see. I love Jeff Bridges. I think he's very true to life. There's something very realistic about his acting that I like. That I would want to see it.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. And the whole family seems to.
Right, and there's a scene where he's in a wheelchair, and some guy wants to have a duel with him, and he gets in a wheelchair and is wheeled up by Bruce Dern, who's been around for years. And that there was something attractive about that for me. I don't know why, but
Well, that he met him on his own level.
right, I like that. I like you want to fight, well, we'll do it
On your level.
On your level. Okay, let's go.
And I think the other thing you liked about it was the fact that he sort of got tired of playing this game, right? Wild Bill, didn't he get tired of being a...
Which is on our baby boomers theme, folks.
Yeah.
Which is he sort of he got sick of all the fighting, and he just said, and that's why he died. He let his guard down finally. I mean, how much can you just can't keep going.
Only so much you can do.
Right, and this every man has to know his limits. That sort of theme, which is you can only go so far, and you should know when to pull out. So.
Right. Well, anyway, it's a great film, so go see it. So one of the other things we wanted to talk about was in the Reader's Digest. There was this article about this new book. The guy's name is Daniel Goldman, I believe. It's on the bestseller list, and it's called Your Emotional IQ.
And there was just some very interesting issues in it, I thought. Very simple things like optimism versus pessimism. And were there some of the other things that you remember about it?
Right. What I liked about it is for people who don't test well, like myself, there's hope. In other words, the sense I got out of the article is street sense carries a lot of weight. It's 80% of chance of success as opposed to 20%. If you have some sense of your surroundings, you might be able to make it in this man's army, as opposed to if you don't test well, you haven't got a chance.
Right.
So, and I think that's very true with people. You may not have a lot of testing ability, but you're good at certain things, and if you pursue that with the right attitude, you have a shot.
Well, and it points out some things that you can really work with, too. It talks about the idea that you have to be very self-aware, and it's not just about your intellectual capability, your IQ of putting these things together, but how self-aware you are, how good you are at managing moods, what self-motivates you, what gets you going, what gets you out of bed.
They mentioned praying a lot, which I do every morning just to get up.
Yeah.
Please help me get through this day. But that gives you a second or two to step back from your rage, which is rage kills us all, at least for me. It gets in your way. And it says in the article how you might have some rage, and it makes your senses more aware, but in the wrong direction. And maybe if you just step back a little bit and go, what are the good things? The example they gave was if someone cuts you off driving. Now, I know when that happens to me, I want to chase the guy down and get him. I want to get him.
I know.
I'm not the nicest guy in the world. And but if I can just say to myself, gee, maybe he's in a hurry. Maybe he'll die around the corner.
Or that cop will pick him up.
Or whatever. He'll get his. Whatever. But just that's that 2 seconds you need. And I like the whole idea of the EQ as opposed to the IQ.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, I think it is too. And also this idea of self-gratification, because they did a test with children with this idea of one marshmallow or two. In other words, they were given a choice. Either they could have their one marshmallow right away, or they could wait 10 minutes and perform some kind of a task, and then they would get 2 marshmallows. So it's really showing, and the children that waited the 10 minutes to get the 2 marshmallows as they grew up had a tendency to think about things a little bit more before they actually did something about it, which I think is a valuable.
Right. Now, Mary Michele, were you a waiter? Or did you just go for it?
Well, I think I kind of always waited a little bit.
Did you?
Yeah.
I never waited a second. And neither does my kid. We just go for it right away, and if it's there, we take it. So we're in trouble.
Oh gosh, I wanted to ask you, how many extracurricular activities does Jack get involved with every week?
Oh boy. Now, he wouldn't get involved in any if he had a choice. He'd just watch TV. But as parents, that's what you try and do. You try to create opportunities, and that's what's so hard for parents.
But do you think it's good for them to be that actively stimulated all the time, and things for them to have to go and do?
Absolutely. I really do. I think that busy hands are happy hands in the devil's own workshop.
I know, but don't you have to learn how to be yourself? Be with yourself. Be alone by yourself. Is that important too?
Very. But at his age, he's around 10, busy is more important. Gives me a big break.
Gives you a break.
So we try and set up a schedule and keep him as busy as possible.
How does he do in restaurants? Have you taken him to the Kit and Caboodle?
I haven't taken him yet. And I'm sure they don't want him. But
oh, they have the best food. Have you eaten there?
The best food, and they probably have some great people to handle people like my kid, Jack.
Now, on a more serious note, you wanted to comment on, or you we're thinking about the children that perhaps may have overdone it.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
this being the first day,